It was a quiet evening, but the room was buzzing with anticipation. Jim Caviezel, the actor known for portraying Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, was sitting in a small circle of friends and fellow actors. The atmosphere was casual, just a few chairs arranged in a circle, soft lighting, and a few cups of coffee scattered on the table. But everyone knew that when Jim spoke, his words carried weight. Tonight, he seemed unusually contemplative. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice calm but filled with emotion. "I had a dream last night," he said, "and I've been thinking about it all day." There was an immediate hush in the room. Everyone leaned forward, curious. Even Jonathan Roumie, the actor who plays Jesus on T, straightened in his chair, sensing that something extraordinary was about to be shared. Jim's eyes were distant, as if he were seeing something no one else could. "In the dream," he continued, "I saw Jesus, not on the cross, not in a painting or on a screen, but walking among people. He was smiling. He was laughing gently, speaking to them, comforting them. There was no anger, no judgment, only love." The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Some attendees shifted in their seats, feeling the weight of the words. Jonathan's eyes began to glisten with tears, though he tried to hold them back. He knew the depth of what Jim was describing wasn't just imagination. It was something spiritual, something that touched the soul. Jim hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "I woke up with this overwhelming sense of peace, and also a responsibility. A responsibility to share this dream, because it reminded me of something so simple, yet so powerful, that love, compassion, and hope are alive, even in the darkest moments." Jonathan's hands trembled slightly as he wiped a tear from his cheek. The room was quiet, not out of awkwardness, but out of reverence. Everyone present felt the gravity of the story. It wasn't just a dream, it was a message. And in that moment, it felt as though the room had been touched by something bigger than all of them. "Sometimes," Jim said, his voice almost a whisper, "we think faith is about what we see in churches, or on screens, or in stories. But faith, true faith, is about what we feel in our hearts, and how we carry it into the world." Everyone in the room sat in stunned silence. They knew they had just heard something they would never forget. Even Jonathan, who has portrayed Jesus for years, couldn't stop crying. The room was still thick with emotion from Jim's story. Jonathan Roumie, seated beside him, was quietly wiping his eyes, trying to regain composure. Yet the energy of what had just been shared seemed to linger in the air like a gentle hum, vibrating with a sense of something holy and unspoken. Everyone present felt it, a silent acknowledgement that what Jim was about to say next mattered. Jim leaned back in his chair and took a slow breath. "I need to tell you more," he said. "Because it wasn't just a simple dream. It was a vision, and it left me thinking all day about how we perceive Jesus, and how we perceive love." He paused, making eye contact with each person in the room. It wasn't the kind of look that demanded attention. It was the kind that invited it. There was humility in his gaze, a soft invitation to witness something sacred. "In the dream," he continued, "Jesus didn't appear in grand robes or on a throne. He didn't perform miracles in front of crowds. He walked among ordinary people, the kind you see every day, the kind we often overlook. He greeted them with kindness, listened to their struggles, and offered comfort. And when they cried, he cried with them." Jonathan shifted in his seat. He had studied and portrayed Jesus for years, yet Jim's words hit him differently, more real, more raw. There was no script here, no performance. It was as if he were describing a moment that existed somewhere between heaven and earth. He could almost feel the warmth of that presence in the room, like the echo of sunlight on a quiet morning. Jim's voice grew quieter, almost reverent. The most powerful part, he admitted, was that Jesus wasn't waiting to be worshipped. He wasn't commanding respect. He was simply there, fully present, fully compassionate, fully human, yet fully divine. A hush settled over the group. One of the actors, normally talkative and full of jokes, found herself speechless. Another, a longtime friend of Jim's, leaned forward, her hands clasped in her lap. Even the air seemed to pause, listening. "Jonathan," Jim said gently, turning to the actor beside him, "I know you know what it feels like to step into his shoes. But have you ever felt him just walk among the people, like a friend, without expectation or judgment?" Jonathan swallowed hard. "No. I think I've imagined it, of course. But hearing it from you, it's different. It's real. I can feel it." His voice was trembling, but not with fear, only the deep, undeniable impact of the story. Jim nodded. "That's exactly it. It's one thing to read about faith, to talk about it, or even to portray it, but it's another thing entirely to feel it, to sense it in every heartbeat and every quiet gesture. I woke up from this dream with tears in my eyes, and a sense of peace I can't explain. And I knew I had to share it. He leaned forward, his hands resting on his knees, his eyes shining with emotion. I think we forget, sometimes, that faith isn't about grandeur. It isn't about performing miracles or receiving applause. It's about the little things, noticing someone's pain, offering a smile, listening when no one else does, forgiving when it's hard. Jesus didn't just teach these things, he lived them. And in my dream, I realized that maybe we can too, if we just open our hearts. The room remained silent. Jonathan's tears had started to flow freely now, and he discreetly dabbed his eyes with a tissue. The emotional weight of Jim's words was palpable. Each person present felt it deeply, in a way that transcended acting, performance, or storytelling. It was something that touched the soul. Jim leaned back again, a small, humble smile on his face. I shared this dream with you tonight, because I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to remember that faith isn't distant. It isn't some abstract concept. It's alive, it's personal, and it's real. And sometimes, it comes to us in ways we never expect, like a dream that lingers long after we wake up. Jonathan looked at him, still speechless, and finally whispered, "Thank you, Jim. Thank you for sharing this. I can't stop crying." Jim smiled softly, reaching out to place a comforting hand on Jonathan's shoulder. "That's okay. Sometimes tears are the only way to carry what the heart feels. That's what this dream was for me, and maybe for you too." And in that quiet, simple room, filled with ordinary people and extraordinary emotions, everyone felt something shift. Something deep, something unspoken, something that reminded them why stories of faith, love, and compassion are never just stories, they are living truths. The room remained heavy with the quiet intensity of Jim's words. Each person present felt the lingering weight of the dream as though it had physically touched them. But what happened next was something no one expected. It wasn't just about the story anymore. It became about the emotions that the story stirred, the vulnerability it revealed, and the unspoken truth that sometimes faith can overwhelm even the strongest hearts. Jonathan Roumie sat still, hands folded tightly in his lap, his face wet with tears. But instead of looking away, he stared directly at Jim, his expression a mixture of awe, reverence, and something deeper, something almost sacred. "Jim," he said softly, voice trembling, "I've portrayed Jesus for years. I've studied his words, his actions, every scene, every line. But I've never felt him like this. Not like in your dream. It's almost unbearable, the intensity of it." Jim nodded slowly. "I know," he said, almost whispering. "It's not something that comes easy. It isn't a story we tell lightly. That dream, it shook me. And I think it shook you too. Because it's impossible to encounter love like that and remain unchanged." The other attendees shifted in their chairs, some with wide eyes, others clutching their hands to their hearts. One of the actors, who had initially thought this would be a casual discussion about dreams, was now trembling slightly. I can't stop thinking about it," she said, her voice quivering. "It's like a wave of peace and sorrow at the same time. I feel like I should be crying, but I also feel so calm." Jim leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. "That's exactly it. Dreams like these, they don't just touch your mind. They touch your soul. And when your soul is touched by something pure, something divine, it's overwhelming. You feel joy, sorrow, humility, awe, all at once." Jonathan's breathing was shallow. He wiped his face, but the tears kept coming. "I don't even know why it's hitting me like this," he said. "I mean, I've experienced powerful moments on set, incredible scenes, but this is different. It's real. It feels real. And I can't hold it in." Jim reached out, placing a comforting hand on Jonathan's shoulder. "It's supposed to hit you like this. Dreams like these, they're not meant to be ignored. They're meant to awaken something inside you, a sense of responsibility, a reminder that love, compassion, and faith are alive, even when the world seems to forget." The room was silent except for the occasional sniffle, the soft shuffle of clothing, the quiet hum of reverence. Every person present felt as if they were walking through something sacred. It wasn't just Jim's dream anymore, it was a shared experience, a collective awakening that transcended words. Then Jim spoke again, his voice calm but firm. "Think about it. How often do we fail to notice the small gestures of kindness around us? How often do we overlook people in need, thinking it's someone else's responsibility?" Jesus in my dream wasn't grandiose. He wasn't performing miracles for attention. He was quietly, gently, lovingly present. And that's the hardest thing to emulate in the world. Jonathan's hands shook slightly as he spoke again. It's terrifying in a way, not in a bad way, but in a way that makes you realize how unprepared we are to carry that kind of love. It's humbling, overwhelming, and beautiful. Jim nodded, his eyes glistening now as well. That's why I had to share it, not because I'm special. Not because it's a story meant to impress. But because moments like these, they demand to be witnessed. They demand to change something inside of us. If we walk away unchanged, then the dream loses its meaning. Jonathan finally leaned back, exhaling slowly. His tears had not stopped, but there was a new sense of peace in his posture. A recognition that the emotion coursing through him was not weakness, it was a gift. I feel alive, he whispered, almost to himself. Like I've been reminded of something I've always known, but had forgotten. The room stayed quiet, filled with the weight of reflection. Every attendee sat in contemplation, each lost in their own thoughts, each touched in their own way. Jim's dream had become more than a personal vision, it had become a mirror, reflecting each person's capacity for empathy, faith, and humility. And in that moment, it was clear, some stories aren't meant to entertain. Some stories aren't meant to inspire in the traditional sense. Some stories are meant to awaken the soul. The room was still. Jim's dream had left a heavy, almost sacred silence hanging in the air, but the energy of it was palpable. It wasn't just a story anymore, it had become a living presence in the room, something everyone could feel pressing gently on their hearts. Each person was processing it in their own way. Some sat motionless, staring at the floor as if seeing something invisible. Others closed their eyes, letting the weight of emotion wash over them. And then there was Jonathan, still trembling, still weeping, yet somehow stronger for it. He wiped the tears from his cheeks and looked around at the small circle of faces. I can't stop thinking about it, he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. Jim, your dream, it's not just a vision. It's a calling. It's a reminder of what we've all forgotten. And hearing it, it's changed me. I feel like I've seen something real, something divine, right here in this room. An older actor, someone who had spent decades in theater and film, nodded slowly. It's incredible, he said softly. We spend our lives studying stories, reading lines, portraying characters, but this is different. This touches the soul. It cuts through everything else and reminds you what really matters. Jim leaned back in his chair, letting out a quiet sigh. That's the thing about dreams like this, he said. They're not just personal experiences. They demand acknowledgement. They demand reflection. And they demand action. You can't walk away from something like this unchanged. A young actress, her eyes glistening with tears, whispered, I feel like I've been standing in the sun after a long winter. Like warmth I forgot existed. Her voice trembled, but there was a note of awe in it that resonated with everyone in the room. Jonathan, still recovering from the intensity, wiped his face again and said, and the most amazing part is that it's so simple. People expect visions, miracles, grand displays. But Jim's dream, it was just Jesus walking among people. Listening, comforting, loving. And somehow, that's the most profound miracle of all. Others nodded silently. The room was alive with unspoken agreement, yet no one dared to interrupt the fragile tension of the moment. It was as if the air itself had thickened, charged with a quiet electricity born from shared awe. Then Jim spoke again, his voice calm but compelling. You know, he said, dreams like this don't always hit you with fireworks or drama. Sometimes, they hit you in quiet ways, through empathy, through tears, through a sudden awareness that love is always closer than we think. That's what I experience. And seeing your reactions, Jonathan, seeing all of yours. I realize it's the same for you. The dream lives in all of us now. Jonathan took a deep breath, his hands clasped together as if holding onto a fragile treasure. I've portrayed Jesus countless times, he said softly. But I've never experienced him this way. This dream, it's more than faith. It's intimacy. It's a personal connection that shakes you to your core. I think I understand now why you had to share it. A hush fell again. Everyone in the room felt the profound weight of the experience, the shared transformation. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the quiet hum of the air conditioning seemed respectful, as if acknowledging the sanctity of the moment. And then, almost imperceptibly, the room shifted. A subtle energy began to ripple through the group, soft smiles replacing stunned expressions, quiet nods of understanding, and gentle movements as people processed the enormity of what they had just witnessed. Tears still fell, but now they were accompanied by relief, by recognition, by awe. It was a collective moment of awakening, the kind that rarely happens, but lingers forever once it does. Jim leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with Jonathan. Sometimes, he said, voice barely above a whisper, faith isn't something we see on screen or read about in books. Faith is what we feel here. He gestured to his chest, in the quiet, in the tears, in the moments that take our breath away. That's what this dream reminded me, and now I see it's reminded all of you as well. Jonathan nodded, his tears still flowing but his heart full. I feel it, he said. I feel it deep inside. And I'll carry it with me, always. The room remained silent for a few more moments, each person honoring the weight of what had occurred. Jim's dream had transformed the ordinary space into something extraordinary. It had become a shared encounter with the divine, a moment of collective reflection, and a reminder of what truly matters: love, empathy, and the courage to be moved by them. And as the silence lingered, it was clear to everyone present that nothing in the room, or in their hearts, would ever be quite the same again. The room remained enveloped in a rare, sacred stillness. Jim's dream had already stirred hearts, but what happened next elevated the moment from emotional intensity to something unforgettable. Everyone felt it, an invisible weight, like a presence just beyond sight, drawing them closer to the truth that Jim had just shared. Jonathan Roumie wiped the last of his tears, but his eyes were wide with awe, shimmering with unspoken wonder. Jim, he whispered, voice trembling, I can't stop thinking about your dream. I feel like I've witnessed something real, something bigger than any scene, any script, any performance I've ever known. Jim nodded, a soft, humble smile on his face. That's exactly it, he said. It wasn't a story meant to entertain or impress. It was a message. And now, it's our responsibility to honor it, to carry it with us, and to let it change how we see the world. The older actor, sitting quietly in the corner, leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly together. I feel it too, he admitted. There's a sense that everything, every fear, every doubt, every distraction, just falls away in a moment like this. It's like we've all been given a glimpse of something eternal. Jonathan's gaze wandered around the room, taking in the faces of those who had witnessed Jim's revelation. He realized something profound. This wasn't just about Jim's dream. It was about how each person responded to it. Some felt awe. Some felt tears. Some felt a quiet, unshakable peace. And all of them were changed. Jim's voice softened, carrying both humility and quiet authority. The most powerful part of the dream, he said, is that Jesus didn't come to demand recognition. He didn't appear to tell us we're failing or to prove a point. He simply walked among people. He loved. He listened. He comforted. And in doing so, he revealed something profound. Faith isn't about grandeur. Faith isn't about spectacle. Faith is about presence, compassion, and humility. Jonathan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the words pressing on him. I've read about this, he said softly. I've acted it, but I've never felt it like this. It's like seeing the sun for the first time after a long winter. I feel illuminated, humbled, and inspired, all at once. Jim nodded, leaning back slightly, his eyes glistening. And that's why I had to share it. Dreams like this, they demand to be witnessed. They demand reflection. They demand transformation. You can't hear a vision like this and remain unchanged. If we ignore it, if we walk away thinking it's just a dream, we miss the point entirely. The point is to carry the love, the hope, the compassion into the world. The young actress who had earlier whispered about feeling warmth now spoke more clearly, her voice firm but soft. I think I understand. The dream isn't just about what Jim saw. It's about what we do with it, how we let it touch others, how we let it change our actions, our words, our hearts. Jim smiled, looking around the circle. Exactly. Faith isn't static. It's not something we observe from a distance. It's something we embody, something we practice every day, even in the smallest moments. And sometimes, it comes to us unexpectedly, through dreams, through encounters, through moments of pure vulnerability. What matters is what we do with it once we experience it. Jonathan's voice trembled, but this time it was with clarity rather than disbelief. I feel it, Jim. I feel it in every part of me. And I promise, I won't forget it. I won't let it fade. This is a revelation I'll carry with me forever. The room fell into another silence, but this time it was different. It wasn't heavy, it was alive, filled with quiet energy and reverence. Each person felt it differently, but each felt it deeply. Some were still crying, some were smiling softly, some were simply sitting, eyes closed, absorbing the weight of the moment. Finally, Jim spoke, his voice gentle but resolute. Moments like this remind us that love and faith are always closer than we think. They aren't hidden in grand displays or miraculous events. They're in the quiet gestures, the compassionate words, the empathy we extend. And sometimes, they come to us in dreams, so we remember who we are, what matters, and how we are meant to live. Jonathan nodded slowly, still wiping his tears. "Thank you, Jim," he said softly. "Not just for sharing your dream, but for letting us witness it. For letting us feel it. For reminding us that faith, real faith, is alive, and it moves us, changes us, and calls us to be better." Jim's smile was humble, almost say. "That's all anyone can do," he said. "Witness, feel, and let it inspire action. Nothing more, nothing less." And in that quiet, sacred room, something shifted. Everyone present knew they had experienced something extraordinary. A vision, a message, a revelation, and the impact would echo in their hearts forever. The room was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than before. Earlier, it had been heavy, charged with awe and raw emotion. Now, it was soft, warm, and filled with a sense of calm purpose. Jim Caviezel's dream had done more than stir hearts, it had changed them. The room, once a simple gathering space, now felt sacred. Every person there seemed to carry a small spark of revelation, a new awareness of what mattered most. Jonathan Roumie sat forward slightly, still wiping his eyes, his expression a mixture of humility and reverence. "I feel lighter," he said, his voice soft but steady. "Not because the dream happened, but because I've allowed myself to feel it, to truly absorb it. It's like a weight I didn't know I was carrying has lifted. And now, I know I need to carry this with me. Not just remember it, but live it." Jim nodded, his own eyes glistening. "That's exactly it. The dream isn't about awe or spectacle. It isn't about being amazed or overwhelmed. It's about transformation, quiet, subtle, and persistent. It's about what we do after the moment has passed. How we let the experience guide our actions, shape our hearts, and influence the people around us." An older actor, who had been silent for much of the conversation, finally spoke. "I think I understand now. For years, I've thought faith was about grand gestures, monumental acts, or profound statements. But the truth, the real truth, is that it's in the small things. It's in patience, kindness, humility. And sometimes, it's in witnessing someone else's dream, and letting it remind us what love looks like." Jim's gaze swept the room, soft but penetrating. "Exactly. And that's why I shared this. Not because I'm special. Not because the dream is mine alone. But because it belongs to all of us. It's a message that says, pay attention. Open your heart. Live with intention. Love deliberately. Forgive freely. And never underestimate the power of quiet compassion." Jonathan leaned back, letting out a long, steady breath. "I've spent years portraying Jesus," he admitted, voice thick with emotion. "I've tried to capture his teachings, his actions, his presence. But tonight I've realized something deeper. Portraying faith is one thing, but living it, feeling it, carrying it in every interaction, that's something entirely different. And I want to be better at that. I need to be better at that." Jim placed a gentle hand on Jonathan's shoulder, offering reassurance. "We all do. None of us get it right all the time. But that's the point. The journey is what matters. And moments like this, moments that shake our hearts, humble our spirits, and make us reflect, are what guide us along that journey. They remind us who we are meant to be." The young actress who had earlier spoken about warmth nodded slowly, tears still in her eyes. "It's like a quiet awakening," she said. "You don't feel like shouting or celebrating. You feel like living differently. Like the world has shifted slightly, and you've been given a chance to walk with it in a new way." Jim smiled, almost say. "That's beautiful. And that's exactly the effect the dream had on me too. I woke up with a sense of purpose, a quiet determination to notice the little things, to act with more love and intention, and to share it when I could. And now seeing all of you feel it, too, I realize it's bigger than me. It's bigger than the dream itself. It's a ripple. And ripples have a way of spreading further than we ever imagined." Jonathan's eyes met Jim's, still glistening, but now filled with clarity and resolve. "Thank you," he whispered. "Not just for sharing the dream, but for letting us witness it. For reminding us that faith isn't something we perform, it's something we live. And that living it, that's the real miracle." The room fell into another quiet moment, but it wasn't the heavy, awe-struck silence from before. It was peaceful, comforting, and full of possibility. Every person present seemed to carry a subtle shift inside them, an invisible change that would influence their words, their actions, and their hearts in the days to come. Jim finally spoke, voice soft but steady. Remember this, love isn't always loud. Faith isn't always visible. But both are always alive, always present, and always waiting for us to notice. And when we do, it changes everything. Even quietly, even subtly, even in ways we might not immediately see. Jonathan nodded, a small, grateful smile forming. I'll carry it with me. I'll let it guide me. I'll let it shape who I am and how I show up in the world. And in that small, quiet room, something profound settled into each heart. The dream had been shared, emotions had been felt, lessons had been learned. And as the group slowly began to rise, stretch, and whisper goodbyes, everyone knew that this night, this story, and this revelation would stay with them forever. Faith, love, and humility weren't just concepts, they were living truths, quietly transforming lives one heart at a time. The room had emptied slowly, but the echoes of Jim Caviezel's dream, and the emotions it stirred lingered like an invisible presence. What had started as a simple sharing of a vision had transformed into something far greater, a living lesson in faith, love, and humility. Each person who left that room carried with them a quiet revelation. Subtle shift that would ripple through their lives and touch the lives of those around them. Faith, it seemed, wasn't always dramatic. It wasn't always visible, and it wasn't always loud. Faith was quiet. It was subtle. It was woven into the small gestures, the gentle acts, and the choices made every day to extend compassion, understanding, and love. And sometimes, it came in unexpected ways, like a dream that moves the heart, like words shared with honesty and vulnerability, like a presence felt rather than seen. Jonathan Roumie walked slowly out of the room, weeping the last of his tears, but smiling softly. His heart was full, but he understood now that this fullness came with responsibility. The dream wasn't just a story. It wasn't just a moment of emotional awe. It was a call to action, a reminder that faith lived not in performances or displays, but in living with integrity, keenness, and empathy. Each encounter with another human being was an opportunity to embody that lesson. Jim Caviezel stayed behind for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He looked around the quiet room, now empty except for chairs and scattered papers. He thought about the ripple effect of dreams, of emotions, of shared vulnerability. How one story could awaken hearts, challenge assumptions, and inspire real change. He thought about the subtle ways the world tested people's patience, compassion, and love every day, and how, often, people overlook the simplest but most profound opportunities to embody faith. He knew that this dream, this vision, would remain with him, just as it would remain with Jonathan and the others. It was a reminder that true power, true influence, didn't come from titles, recognition, or grand gestures. It came from quiet integrity, from humility, and from the courage to live according to one's deepest values, even when no one was watching. And that, perhaps, was the most important lesson of all. Respect and love weren't conditional. They weren't reserved for extraordinary people, for moments of grandeur, or for those who could perform miracles. They were meant for everyone. Every person deserved compassion, patience, and empathy, simply because they were human. And in practicing that every day, the dream's message, of walking among people with keenness, listening with presence, and loving without expectation, became a living reality. As Jim left the room, he carried with him a quiet smile, knowing that the seed had been planted. Faith, love, and humility don't always make headlines. They don't always demand attention. But they grow quietly, persistently, in the hearts of those willing to notice, willing to feel, willing to act. And in that growth lies the true power of humanity, the ability to transform ordinary moments into something extraordinary. Jonathan, too, felt this deeply. The tears he had shed were not a sign of weakness, but of awakening. They were proof that the heart could be moved, that empathy could be profound, and that faith could be real, lived, and deeply transformative. He knew he would carry this lesson into every scene he performed, every encounter he had, and every quiet moment of reflection. The dream had become more than a story. It had become a guide for living with purpose. And as the day faded into night, the moral was clear. Respect, love, and humility are not earned through wealth, status, or recognition. They are cultivated through quiet acts, thoughtful words, and an unwavering commitment to treat every person with dignity. Because one day, the person we least expect to impact us may be the very one who teaches us the greatest lessons about life, love, and faith. Faith, like love, is alive. It moves quietly. It speaks softly. And when we listen, when we act, and when we share, it transforms not only ourselves but the world around us. Type faith in the comments if you believe humility and love are true strength. And tell me where you're watching from. Because every kind soul deserves recognition for keeping hope and compassion alive in the world. Remember, the most profound miracles aren't always seen, they're felt, lived, and shared.